Ruby Steel friends, this is the most fun that I've had playing Ruby Steel challenge decks since I switched over from Amber Steel Song after rotation. So I've been tinkering with this for the last couple sets. If any of you have been following, you know that that's true. And then I've been basing my decks around Raya, around One Last Hope, and also the Maui Half Shark loops. And in the past, those Maui Half Shark loops have felt very clunky. And this set, it's gotten considerably better. And then, especially in this set, there's been a lot of cards that I've added to this deck. So I'll go through it. But what I want to say is, I've tried basically every version of this. And this is the one that I enjoy the most and feels the most competitive. And like you're not out of any of the matches no matter what. And what I mean by that, and this is why I'm excited to post this video, is I was playing a match where I was down, or I guess it would be a game, where I was down 17-0 or 17-2. They were playing purple steel. They emptied their hand. They had, I think, 8 cards out, 3 of which, I think it was 2 genies and a Dumbo, were evasive. And all I had out was Ariel and Hercules, and I was able to wipe their board completely refill my hand with medallion weights. I had eight more cards in my hand, and clawed my way back and won by playing 2 actions with 2 Maui Half Sharks on the board to get my last 4 lore. So that game I won 20-19, and it was very exciting for me just to know that you're never out of the game. So I'll get into it a little bit here, and then I'll go into what's new, some of the rotations that are there, and then I'll have a real discussion about kind of what makes the deck difficult to play, because I do think that it needs a little bit more experience with it and probably a really strong game plan when it comes to mulligans, even more so than probably some other decks. So first, for 1-drops, I'm using 4 of the new Tinkerbell along with Mulan. Mulan's one of my favorite cards for getting your ready action card into the discard. It works really well if you can get it there early, and then that way you're only hoping for just one last hope when you have Maui on the board. So then you can do that Maui Loop, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So these 2 cards, I don't know that I would really change. There isn't really another 1-drop card that's good for Ruby Steel, in my opinion, other than this new Tinkerbell. So it's nice to have a second Tinkerbell there. I just added Milo Thatch to this deck. Again, I'll talk about it a little bit more when I talk about the Raya Loop. But basically, this one's the one that gives, every time you play an action, you can give a character +2 strength. This comes in later because a lot of times what ends up happening with Raya or even with Calhoun is there'll be one strength too short to be able to kill things. And because of that, it can be difficult, especially early, when it comes to aggro decks that are using Daisy Duck or the ones that have really high willpower. So I'll talk more about the Milo Thatch, but I think he's kind of the star of the new set for me, along with Hercules. Powerline I'm still using. I think this is one that potentially could go down to 3, maybe go down to 3 of if we needed to put another card in. Calhoun, I brought Calhoun back. I wasn't really playing it at the end of last set, but I think with the way that this all functions now, you kind of have to. You'll notice that I'm not playing Doc. I am using other cards for card draw, so it's just Powerline and Calhoun along with the new Milo Thatch for the 2-drops. I brought Ariel into this. This is the evasive Ariel that gives your character or any of your characters evasive when you play an action. And because this is an action attack deck or an action challenge deck, this works really well along with Milo Thatch. You can kind of see where I'm going with that. With the Milo on 2, Ariel on 3, there's a lot you can do on turn 4 if they don't have an answer for either of those by then. Raya, again, I played, basically Raya's like my favorite card and what I was building this around when I first started. And so this one's really exciting for me to be able to keep using. I did test a lot of Powerline like shift decks. It does feel a lot more like Steel Song when you play the Powerline shift deck, just because of the new song. So the Hurled Thunderbolt, it can be very controlling. The difference between the Amber Steel Song and Ruby Steel Song, though, is once you get control with an Amber Steel Song deck, usually you can throw a bunch of characters out and quest a couple times with a lot of lore. Whereas, and you have card draw, or had card draw. Whereas with this one, you get control and then it feels like, and then what, right? Like I've used a lot of cards to be able to gain that control and now I have nothing in my hand. What do I do now? So that's why it felt a little clunky, even though the control aspect of it I think is really good and it has potential. Potentially in some of the next sets that'll be really good. But for now, that's why I'm going this version of this. This is just the best that I've found. So still everything pivots around Raya. This new Hercules card is really good. I threw it into a lot of the testing decks that I was doing just to see how it would play along with a couple of these other cards. And I think Hercules, out of the newest cards, is the MVP. That is such a good card. It's really hard for them to get rid of unless they make you ink it. You can get it. You can get it sideways and then make sure that like any of your other heroes, which this is a hero deck, right? Yeah, it's just for hero characters. I mean, this is a hero deck. Even Milo Thatch is a hero. So a lot of these characters don't take damage when they're attacking. And that's especially good for Raya and for Maui when you get them into their loop when they can wipe the board. So if you can have a couple of these cards out, that's how you can come back. And I'll get back to how I came back in that purple steel match too, but it had a lot to do with Hercules. Really, it was Ariel and Hercules were the MVP there. They were all I had on my board. Mushu. I tried playing without this for a little bit, and I was playing with the new item instead, just because it was cheaper, and I liked a lot of the 5-cost cards. But I went back to it. I think that the Mushu is always threatening, and if anything, sometimes it'll pull attention over to the Mushu, and they'll get rid of that instead of one of your other cards that could actually impact their board more, because they have to make a choice. Either they risk losing their board, or they risk losing it and and losing all the lore too. So a lot of times they'll target the Mushu, and that's pretty good, especially when they challenge it with the four strength there too. So I don't think that you can really play it without Mushu. I tried playing without Queen of Hearts, but I think 2 of Queen of Hearts is 2 Queen of Hearts. I'm playing only 3 of the medallion weights. I was playing 4 before. 3 feels pretty comfortable, especially with the Queen of Hearts. And then pairing that with the Goliath on 6, just as extra card draw if you kind of get stuck. Between those 3, it's really nice playing this deck without using any uninkables for card draw. So I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I think it's going to take some more testing because this is all fairly preliminary for me. But again, I think that this is the best way for card draw. I had already ditched all of the other card draw options like Dock and all of that at the end of last set anyway. So the Goliath being an addition here I think is really nice. Tinkerbell Shift, I think this is really good. I'm only using 2 of these because a lot of times you don't want to shift and waste cards. That's kind of the mantra for Ruby Steel. But it can have a really good opener with Calhoun, so I'll get into that. And it's also nice to be able to turn something sideways late if they have a smaller character and then get some value out of your Maui. You can even start the loop with Maui by doing that with Tinkerbell, which is really cool. I'm playing 2 of the Mulan that allows you to all of your other characters to challenge ready characters when she gets to challenge. So sometimes you can use One Last Hope just on her, and then the rest of your characters can start challenging at that point. That can break a stalemate game, which is really nice. I'm playing 1 of this King Arthur. I was kind of doing it as a meme, I think, at the end of last set for when I was in set champs. I didn't really have any. I didn't really anticipate that I was going to do very well in set champs. But this actually did better than I thought it would. And even in League, I've won a couple games where you get Maui out, and then the next turn you play Arthur if they can't get rid of Maui. And if you have Next Stop Olympus in your discard. Whereas before, you couldn't really do this because the ready card for your Maui Half Shark was... it always costed ink, so you couldn't do this on turn 7. Now you can because Next Stop Olympus is free. So this Arthur is really, really good right now. It was okay at the end of last set, but it felt a little clunky even at like set champs. And now in League, it's just really good. I added 2 break free. So there's an argument to be made for using the new Mushu's rocket, but I think because I'm using Milo Thatch and because I'm using Ariel, break free is, or I guess not Ariel, but break free is really important for Milo Thatch because it not only gives you the one strength from break free and gives rush, but it also gives two strength from Milo Thatch. So if you play, this is kind of how I came back in that game, is I played Raya along with break free, and that gave three, and then played with medallion weights, now it's five. Or if Milo Thatch would have been in, it would have done the same thing just by playing break free with Raya. It would have been a 5-3 for the rest of that. So I think break free is probably better, especially with this Hercules. When Hercules is sideways, if you play one of the hero characters and then play break free, they won't take the damage from the deal one damage to your chosen character to gain rush. So it gets rid of the negative by having Hercules, especially if you use it on Hercules or have Hercules out and use it on like Raya. So I think this is the better option between this and Mushu's rocket, but I could be swayed. I think it depends on how you're playing, but the way that this is constructed, I think that break free is best. Next stop, Olympus. Something that I didn't even consider with this. I mean, when you're looping with next stop Olympus, or you even use it once and you use it for free, Milo Thatch is giving you more strength by doing that too. So it's something just to keep in mind that you can use it for that purpose. A lot of times the way that I play this, I'm trying to get Next Stop Olympus into my discard and not ink it. And once I have one in my discard, I'm a little more free to ink them if I feel like I have better cards in my hand. Just because once it's in my discard, I know that I can loop with Maui. So a lot of times if I see Next Stop Olympus and Mulan in my opening hand, I will not mulligan those two, and that'll be my first combo that I play is play Mulan, draw a card, and then get rid of Next Stop Olympus and put it in the discard for later. But this is a huge card. I think the reason that this deck feels so much better now is because the Maui Loop is so much more efficient than it ever was. It's really good with Hercules. It's really good having Tinkerbell out because it's a 5 cost, so it'll make it cost less. Same with Goliath. Same with Mulan. There's a lot of cards that you have out that can make this free. So Next Stop Olympus, most of the time you're only playing it when it's free. I also think what's nice about this is if you're playing against like a Tiana deck, you can ready the Tiana and then take out their other characters. Especially, say you have like Milo Thatch and Tinkerbell out or something. If you play Next Stop Olympus and you play it on their Tinkerbell, or not Tinkerbell, excuse me. You play it on their Tiana to ready it. Now you can hit, say, like a Daisy Duck, and if they have another lower cost character, and you can give Milo Thatch 2 strength from playing Next Stop Olympus. So now Milo Thatch can hit Daisy Duck and take it out, and then if you had a 1-drop, you could take something else out. So you can kind of surprise those decks. So I think that this card is really good, and it synergizes with everything else here too, even more than before. But I'm much faster in the deck. This is just because of all of the evasive decks. So because purple's so good, that's the main reason why I'm playing this Ariel, and it's the reason why I'm playing this, but I'm much faster. I think if it wasn't such an evasive heavy meta, or I didn't feel like Ariel would get targeted as much, I do think that it would be better to have the item. What's that item called? The new Hercules item. I'll have to look, but yeah, I think that this could have been replaced with the new item that gives you 1 lore when you banish a character. But that's my trade-off that I've made for now, and I really don't want to add a lot more items in here because everything runs through One Last Hope, and I don't think that you can play this deck without playing Medallion Weights. So that's 62 cards. I kind of like playing 62 cards, especially with Ruby Steel, just because it's close to 60, it's pretty efficient, but there's a lot of cards that you need to make the deck efficient. And it always feels like I want to play like 70 cards or 75 cards because there's so many that interact with each other, but they don't do it very efficiently. So it's really hard to get a group of 60 cards together that's really good. So I'm usually happy if I can stay at 62 or less. And it's not like I'm a pro player or anything. This is just where I've been the most comfortable and not felt like it changes the odds of me pulling certain cards too much. So we'll go to, these are the new cards this set. So you can tell I did a lot of adding to this deck even from this new set. And this is why I think it's considerably better than it ever has been. The Tinkerbell with the Tinkerbell shift. I'll get into that when I go over that with Calhoun, but I think that that's really good. Added Hercules again. I think that this is an MVP of the deck. And then Goliath is kind of a just in case for late if you run into trouble and you need card draw. Next Stop Olympus. This is Hercules and Next Stop Olympus are the reason that this deck feels so good. This set. This Next Stop Olympus is like exactly what I would ask for. It's the one broken card that I feel like we've gotten, whereas a lot of the other color combinations get much more broken cards than this. But it's good enough. I'll accept this because it's really, really good, and it means that you're never completely out of a game if you have Maui out on the board, because you can get them stuck in a loop and they have to remove it or they'll just lose. But I'm much faster. Again, this gives evasive and challenger +2. It's also an action, so if you pair it with Milo Thatch, it gives a lot more than this challenger 2. It actually gives 4 if you want it to, or you can kind of split that up between 2 people or 2 cards. These are the new additions to the deck from prior sets, so I can't really read it from here, but I think that these are from just the last couple sets here. Milo Thatch I went over quite a bit. This is to add strength. Again, what I ran into a lot is feeling like I have the right cards out, but they just don't have enough strength to take out something. Like they'll be 1 or 2 short. Lumiere is really good, but you have to have a couple of them out to get that 2. And I think that because most of the time when I'm challenging, it's when I'm using One Last Hope. If that's the case, you're always getting 2 off of this Milo Thatch, which is much more efficient than trying to get a bunch of Lumieres out. So that's why I use Milo Thatch, and then I think it pairs really well with this Ariel, along with trying to be able to hit evasive. So what would happen before is, for something like Raya, if you wanted to be able to wipe the board with One Last Hope, you could try with medallion weights, then you're hitting for 4, but the problem is you're not hitting evasive. So if that was the case, you could hit for more, but you have to use but I'm much faster from this new set. And it's just, I don't know, that feels like a little bit less efficient than having Milo Thatch out and Ariel. Playing One Last Hope onto Raya. You could even play Break Free at that point too, and wipe their board even if they have evasive. So that's pretty cool. So those are the new cards, but not from the new set. And then this is the Maui Loop. I did this last time too to show it. Basically the Maui Loop before I was just showing Maui One Last Hope, and then either Evil Comes Prepared, or I think the set before that, or 2 sets before that was the 1-cost one that did that before rotation. So this is just become so efficient because it opens up a lot of opportunities with Break Free and with Arthur. So again, I went over this before. On turn 7, you could wait 1 turn if you have One Last Hope and Maui in your hand, especially, and if you have Break Free. If you happen to have that combination, you could hold off for a turn, play Maui, play One Last Hope, and then or sing One Last Hope with another character, and then play Break Free. Maui won't take any damage from it. They'll gain 1 more strength and bring them up to 8, and make them an 8/5, which is important for if you're playing against like a Vincenzo or something that has 8 willpower. And then you can pull Next Stop Olympus out of your discard. The other thing that I've had happen too is if I have Maui on the board and I have One Last Hope and Next Stop Olympus in my hand, you can save a lot of ink now by singing One Last Hope on Maui, or with Maui, gain a lore, and then ready Maui for free with Next Stop Olympus. So right now you haven't spent any, so that, say this is turn 7, you haven't spent any ink. Maui's ready and can attack ready characters, and then you can keep looping the Next Stop Olympus, which means if you had like a medallion weights in your hand, you could spend 2 to put it out, spend 2 more to put it onto Maui, and now you can fill your hand. So it opens a lot of opportunities that way if you can ever get it to dry. And that's kind of the same thing with this Arthur card. Again, I can't see a way of getting more than one of these in the deck because it would just clog it up. But when you see this one, especially if you have Mulans, you can get it into your discard if it's just way too early and it's just going to be in your way. But as a late card, it is something that while you're hoping, say you have Maui out and you're just, the one card you need is One Last Hope, sometimes Arthur will come out, and that's all you need too because it lets you attack ready characters. And again, this wasn't something you could do last set, but now you can because of the free cost on Next Stop Olympus. The other thing that's really important is this new Hercules. When it's turned sideways, none of your hero characters take damage from anything other than being challenged. And so because of that, you can play, if you have Hercules out and Maui out, they can wipe anything. It doesn't matter how much strength they have, and you don't have to worry about Maui with One Last Hope only having to resist. Now he basically has full resist, so he won't take any damage. And you can do that on a loop. It's really hard to get rid of this Hercules unless they ink it. So unless they use like a Hades or something, and at that point Maui would be the target. And then you might even have like a Maui and a break free in your hand, and it wouldn't matter anyway. So that's the Maui Loop, just the updated Maui Loop. This is the updated Raya Loop. So this is for early in the game. Basically the way this deck plays, early in the game you're trying to get Raya set up in a way that gets you a bunch of card draw and wipes their board. And then late you're trying to end it with Maui, is how I view it. So I'm basically playing through those two ways. You do have Calhoun in the deck, so sometimes you can get Mushu out with Calhouns and then get them into trouble, especially against aggro decks, and you can kind of win that way. But these are some of the ways that you can claw back from, especially if like you're going second and they don't remove some of your early cards. You can wipe them and then refill your hand and get back in it. So starting with Milo, again, the 2 strength from playing an action is really important. You can actually play these first 4 cards. If you have these first 4 cards in your hand, and I guess you had, One Last Hope, like now you're getting really combo heavy, but basically, if you have that with One Last Hope, you can wipe their board really easily. You're just not going to fill your hand, so you're going to be in a little bit of card draw problems. But if you're going second or they were getting far ahead from you anyway, it can work. Because basically, so Ariel sings... I mean, if you played Break Free and you actually played this on 4 and then didn't just play Raya on 4 and then wait until the next turn to play One Last Hope, or especially One Last Hope with Medallion Weights, which is another one of the lines there. But basically, you can give this, if you played Break Free with Raya, it would give 1 more. Milo Thatch gives 2 more, so now it's up to 5. If you played One Last Hope with Ariel, now Raya's evasive. And you can give Milo, or have Milo give her 2 more strength, so now she's a 7-3 with 2 resist, and she's evasive, so you can wipe anything with that. I have had it happen. It's how actually I won that game that I was saying that I was really far behind. It's very high rolly. What normally happens, it's kind of nice to get Milo out with Ariel and Raya. It's a nice 2-3-4 play. Because then you can sing One Last Hope, especially if you have Medallion Weights in your hand. And then on, any of those turns after that, you'd be able to play Medallion Weights and also trigger it and also sing One Last Hope. So you can kind of do it on later turns, but the later you go, the more answers they have for you. So it's kind of nice to do it early. I'm going to go back to the deck list. So the way that I used to play this, or the way that I try to play this if I have Medallion Weights. If I have Medallion Weights, I'll play Powerline into Raya into Medallion Weights with One Last Hope. So that's why Powerline's here. Powerline can sing One Last Hope onto Raya. You can play Medallion Weights for 2 and then trigger it for 2. She hits for 4. She wipes the board. And then every one that she's wiping while doing that, she's filling your hand. That's about the most efficient way to get card draw really, really early. It just doesn't always happen. So that's what's really difficult about the mulligans early, is you kind of have to take what you get and take different lines based on that. So that's the Raya Loop. And that's the reason why I added Ariel for evasive for Raya, and Milo was for the extra strength, so Raya hits for more than 2. And then again, Medallion Weights does kind of the same purpose. So really, I'm hoping you can kind of see like there's a lot of synergy here where all of these characters are kind of helping each other, and it's not taking away from what the whole deck is doing on the whole. Here's the reason that I added the Tinkerbell shift. So I'm playing 4 of the 1-drop Tinkerbell and then just 2 of the shift. But this is kind of a decent start. The problem, again, when you shift on turn 3 is it feels like you're wasting a card on the board, but at the same time, it's nice to have a 5 and a 2 cost on the board early, especially because Tinkerbell can sing, and Calhoun's a really strong card. Tinkerbell shifted hits for 5, 3 willpower is pretty good early on in the game, so this is a pretty good start. And I've gotten ahead in aggro matchups before by doing this. So basically, Tinkerbell on 1, Calhoun on 2, and then on 3, if they play another small character, especially if they're going first and they play Tiana and they're waiting to turn it sideways the next turn and you're going to be in trouble, you can shift Tinkerbell, exert the I guess not. You don't want to exert the Tiana, do you? I take that back. So not for Tiana, but you can wipe the rest of the stuff that's out there. So for the first 2 cards that they play, I think I've done this with more like the purple steel decks when they have there's 2 strength characters, or they have like the 1 strength characters that have challenger on them. It can be really nice to turn those sideways and then use Calhoun. Either use Calhoun on it or use Tinkerbell. A lot of times you can wipe both of those cards if they're trying to like bait you or something. So you can get rid of one of their more impactful cards. Where I've used this before too, that's really helpful, is the blue Cinderella. I know it's already done its job by the time it comes down, but you can get rid of it so it doesn't keep ramping at that point. So this is okay. I don't want you to think that I think that this is the best start in the world. I think this is probably the worst start that this deck has. But it does exist, and otherwise the Tinkerbell is just a good 3/1 stat. This Tinkerbell that you shift into, it's good late if they play a card, or play a card that has lower strength. Maybe you have a Maui out, they're not turning sideways. You can play this Tinkerbell, turn it sideways, and now Maui can get in the loop. So it's kind of useful for that more than anything, but this is a way to play it. And then this is, I'm hesitant to go over these just because the way that the deck plays right now, you have to be very careful with how you change it. I think that's always the case. So I wouldn't go adding a bunch of these because I think you add any of these and it completely changes how the deck plays. I would start with the Sword of Hercules. That was the item that I was trying to talk about earlier. Sword of Hercules probably needs to be in this deck. I just haven't figured out where. Excuse me. I just haven't figured out where to put the Sword of Hercules. I bet you... I have played with it, and it does feel really good. It's really nice against that purple Hades. It's really nice against blue Hades, but usually by then you're in trouble. It's a nice card. It's probably better for challenging and gaining the lore quicker in the game than anything else, especially when you can't get Mushu out. This is a really cheap version of that, especially if you have a couple of these out. Now you can start challenging there. So it's a good card. I do think it probably needs to be in the deck. I pretty passionately think that it has to be there. I just haven't figured it out yet because this is pretty early that I landed on this. Mushu's Rocket, I was kind of playing too. I think Break Free's better for this deck because of Milo Thatch. But there's an argument for Mushu to really replace that, especially if you want to be able to put it down and then potentially play it again later for 2. So, depends on what you're doing, but I do think that Break Free's better just because of Milo. Starting at the very beginning, I played, so just with the characters, I did play for a little bit with this Mushu because I was trying to rush the Maui, or trying to rush like the Raya. And I don't know. It's okay. I'd say that this is okay. This is one of those cards that, like I was saying, like I wish I could have 70 cards in here. Because Mushu's one of them I would put in, and Shere Khan is one of them that I would put in. But then we'd have too many 3-drops. I think if we had a better way to deal with evasives, so like the old Imperial bow, the one that gave +2 strength or +2 challenger, and then also gave you evasive for that turn. Um, that item was awesome, and I think that we would have been in a better place if that one still existed. But because I feel like we have to play the Ariel in order to deal with those decks at all and have an evasive presence. The Shirkan gets cut, which is a bummer. I do think that it has a place in here, and the more Shirkan and Sword of Hercules that you have in this deck, I think the scarier it gets because then it's just any attack will do it, um, just from the Shirkan, and then if you're banishing two, then the Sword of Hercules is helping that too. So all of these can be really good. Yeah, again, you can't have 70, 75 cards, so that's why these are getting cut. It's not because I don't think that they're good. The Mulan 4, it's more uninkables is really the problem that I have with it. And I think Hercules is better for. And then by then, I'm usually trying to play other cards I've noticed, which is why I'm only playing Hercules as the 4-drop. Let me go back and look before I say that for sure. Yeah, Hercules is my only 4-drop. And the reason I'm doing that is by then I'm usually trying to play other cards. So sometimes I'm like hard casting One Last Hope, or I'm playing one of the 3-drops with Break Free, or I'm playing Medallion Weights and triggering it on the same turn to give myself card draw. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing on 4, and playing this Mulan is tough. I think that if you're playing the Mushu, then maybe this Mulan becomes even more important because now you can rush the Mulan with just the Mushu on 4. Um, but I still think it's difficult. I think this is difficult to play. But I think it's good and it has potential. Stitch and Robin Hood are kind of in that same place where they're nice, but it just makes the deck feel a little bit worse just from the matchups that we have, not because of the deck itself. And then Mulan, I'm playing the other Mulan only because it feels like this one is counter to what we're trying to accomplish, which is challenge. But this is nice. If you can shift this and take out 3 characters with it, that's a pretty big deal. So I have gone back and forth on this, but I just keep landing on the other Mulan shift. So those are the possible substitutes, and then just back to the deck list. Just some final thoughts on this. So mulligans are really difficult, and I think you have to be very intentional. If you know what you're playing against, you have to be really intentional about that matchup. And if you don't know who you're playing against, you have to also be like honest with your honest with yourself with what the mulligan or what the initial cards have given you to know how to mulligan. Because it's like sometimes you'll just have a weird smattering of cards and it's kind of hard to know like where to go with it. Like do I play Tinkerbell or Mulan if I have them both in my hand? Most of the time, if I have Next Stop Olympus, the answer is always Mulan. If I have Tinkerbell but I also have the Tinkerbell shift, do I want to play that line, or is there something better? Like, do I not have Calhoun, so it's kind of not as worth it for that turn, or do I maybe have a better 2 and 3 drop, so doing that would be less impactful anyway? Tinkerbell's good with a 3 attack, so sometimes you can take out some of their bigger 1-drop cards with this, which is nice. So it just kind of depends. To be completely honest with you, I think most of the matches that I'm really struggling with the most, is because I'm not mulliganing correctly and it's setting me up for failure, and I haven't figured that out yet because I've only been playing this version of this for maybe 3 days. So yeah, there's the caveat to that, but yeah, as far as choosing one of these two, that's hard. Sometimes I'll wait until I have Next Stop Olympus before I use the Mulan. Milo, Thatch, or Powerline. I think if you have Ariel, if you only have Ariel and Milo, Thatch, and Powerline, but you don't have Raya yet, to be honest, I like playing Milo into Ariel because if the Raya pops up later, then you know that you'll be able to give it strength. But that might be wrong. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of times I'll play the power line if I have medallion weights. So power line, medallion weights, Raya, One Last Hope, or any variation of those. The more of those that I have, the more inclined I am to play the power line. The less of that I have already, most of the time I want to play the Milo Thatch. I think this Milo Thatch is really, really good. And then even later in the game, it's even better, especially when you can get, get it out and you could play break free on the same turn. Um, it is a hero, so you can use One Last Hope on it, which is awesome. Hercules affects it. It's a really good card. I think Milo Thatch is a really good card. It almost has me rethinking what to do with Powerline, even though Powerline's been really good in this deck too. Um, I mean, most of the time I'm not trying to keep Hercules in my hand. Just for early, I'm really trying to. I'm hard targeting medallion weights. I like seeing Next Stop Olympus with Mulan. And then other than that, I'm kind of trying to get through the early game as best as I can. Maybe control their hand with Raya, get to the late game, and then get them in a position where they can't. They have to get rid of Maui or else they lose. Is really, I mean, I'm trying to keep it as straightforward as possible with my game plan, just so I can be as consistent as possible. But this does have a couple different lines that you could play, so I think that you can lose games through the mulligan. By having the wrong strategy for the deck that you're playing against. So I don't think that this is by any means a really easy deck to play. But if you've been playing this at all or you're trying to get into it, I do think it's one that's worth practicing with and editing, a couple of cards in here and there. I just wouldn't do more than like one at a time. Like I could see maybe lowering like Tinkerbell and Mulan to 3 of each, so that you could get 2 of the sword in there. What was the name of it again? Sword of Hercules. Maybe you get 2 of those in just so it's there, but you're not overrun with items. So when I'm thinking about editing, it's always small edits, because even if you do something like Powerline goes down to 3 and you add a card, that can change the way that this feels quite a bit. So that's enough of me rambling on this. If you give this a try, or if you have any thoughts, please leave comments. I do answer them, because I mean, obviously I like the conversation about the deck. But let me know what you think and what you've been playing with. The only thing that I'd say is, if you're playing a version of Ruby Steel and you think that this one's dumb, maybe keep that to yourself. Let's try and be productive when we're talking to each other. But I think any of us that are trying to make this work, I think we can gain some from each other. And I think it's fun, and I think it keeps getting closer. And I really do think that the only reason that it's not bridging the gap quicker than with how good it's getting every set is because the other decks are just getting so much better every set. Like green blue is really hard to play into right now because of that stupid malicious, mean, and scary with the Prince Philip. It's just Emerald Chromacon's really hard to play into with this deck, and it's made me consider playing like a Benja or some of the other cards that get rid of items, but it just makes the deck play funny. You almost just have to race them when they do that. There's a couple decks that get really weird for this, but I think that's true for most things too. So, but because those keep getting better, again, this isn't catching up as fast as I think it would have otherwise. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this. If you try it, let me know how it goes, and if you make any edits to this that you think are really good, I would love to hear it. Thanks.